Welcome once again to the Athearn Extra. This is the second one of the year, and I don't know about you, but I've got spring fever. We've got some more train shows coming up. We're going to talk about that tonight's episode. If you're joining us live, thank you very much. We appreciate you viewing us here tonight live. And if you're catching us later on our YouTube channel and you like what you see here, do us a favor, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons, and while you're at it, go ahead and hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video drops into our YouTube channel. I want to see who's joining us here tonight. I see James, Willie, Will the Train, Ron, Charles Woods, Delta 9, Jerry is here, Brody, Cole, BN 1970, and David, just to name a few. We're going to be talking museums tonight. We're going to be talking predominantly about HO scale trains, but we'll probably wander into other scales as well. We've got some great stuff to talk about. The Athearn team has been planning on attending the Rocky Mountain Train Show coming up in April. That's going to be the first weekend of April. And this is another great show. If you've never been to this show before, a lot of great modeling going on there, a lot of great layouts. They put on a really great show. And there's also a lot of things to see in the area, and that's going to be a subject of tonight's conversation. So let's do one more round of shout outs, and then let's get started with the Athearn Extra 3.2. Let's see, I see Cody has joined us. Alco Steam. No, I am not against the blue background. That's a Train Tuesday thing. I figured I'd show you my layout. I haven't really gotten much done on it lately, but that is what's in the behind me there. Lewis, Jason is here, and he just turned 45. So happy birthday, Jason. Hopefully you got some model railroad goodness for your birthday. Donnie, pleased to see you here tonight. Train Jack 16, Mr. Charles Woods, and Cole Miller. So without further ado, let's get started with this Athearn Extra. Now, as I was saying earlier, it's getting close to the Rocky Mountain Train Show in Denver, Colorado. So I wanted to highlight a great museum you can visit while you're attending the Rocky Mountain Train Show. And this also brings me up for our guest tonight. Our guest tonight started in 2009 with the museum. She and her daughters actually helped volunteer at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum's gift shop. Then eventually she became an employee in 2011 and ultimately became the museum's executive director. Now, she's no stranger to model railroading or the model railroad community. She's a strong advocate for the Women in Model Railroading group and is even featured as her own HO scale figure from Mini Prints. It is my privilege to welcome aboard tonight, Michelle. Michelle,
Hi.
Pleased to see you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Are you ready for spring?
I am so ready for spring because we're getting about a foot of snow outside right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Colorado's getting tons of snow today, which I like that too, but I was kind of enjoying the sunshine before this.
And usually, you know, I've been to the Rocky Mountain Train Show enough to know that sometimes it's beautiful. I think last year we had really beautiful weather, and the year before it was kind of cold. So it may say spring on the calendar, but Denver may say otherwise.
This is our season of like air conditioning and heat, and then air conditioning and then heat. It's like 70, 30, 70, 30. So that's just how it goes in the spring.
That's how it is. Now, you're native to the area, correct?
I moved here in high school. I was actually born in Nebraska. I'm in Nebraska.
Oh.
So a farm girl when I was little. Yeah.
Okay. And what brought you to the Colorado, Denver area?
So my father worked in the ag industry, and he sold center pivot irrigation, and then he helped develop what's called belt chain for potato harvesting. And there's a company here in Greeley that hired my dad and brought our whole family down here, and we've loved it. I haven't left. So
that's great. Now, the one question I'm sure a lot of us are all asking is, how did you get involved in model railroading? What's the path that got you into this interesting hobby?
Well, I kind of fell into it. What's funny is that I was married. I'm divorced, remarried. My first marriage, when we were in college, we got married, And we had an N-scale layout in our trailer home while we were students. And I didn't know a thing about it. And I often laugh about the train that I bought. I went to Caboose Hobbies in Denver and I bought a steam locomotive because it had that teal color on it. It was the Great Northern, like that pretty teal color. And then I bought all the cars based on the color of the car. So I'm sure that my train was ridiculous to what I know now. But at the time, I loved it. It was beautiful. It was a cute little train. And so it's funny that I started there and then kind of fell into the museum in Greeley. I was working at a homeless shelter, and Dave Trussell, the man who built the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, had a fundraiser and invited the shelter to come over for a fundraiser. And so my daughter and I went, and we loved it so much we started volunteering. And so we would go there 2 Saturdays a month and just sit there with a little cash box at the table. And my daughter would go around the museum and clean things and read a book in the caboose. And she put in 200 hours of volunteer time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before she was 10. So,
Before she was 10, wow.
Yeah. And then Dave asked me, he said, he built the museum to play on it. It wasn't intended to be a museum when he first built it. And he said, I think this could be something. Maybe we could see if we could be self-sustaining. And he said, if I hire you and you become our first employee, would you promise to stay for 3 years and let's see if we could put money in the bank? And I said, okay, yeah, I love it here. And so it was called the Greeley Freight Station at the time. And I was the first employee and the only employee for 3 years. And we put money in the bank on the 3rd year. And we've been growing ever since, almost exponentially. And now we have 8 employees and we're open almost daily. And we're the #1 tourist attraction in Northern Colorado in our area. And it's just been a joy. So, and I love every minute of it.
That's interesting how you just happen to get involved with that. Now, give us a little bit of background about the museum itself. How did it come to start?
Yeah, so David Trussell was a longtime modeler, but he was a newspaper publisher. And so he was in Vietnam. He was a newspaper writer for the Army. He wrote their paper. And then when he came back, he bought his first newspaper in Lakeview, Oregon. And he, over time, bought many newspapers like Tahoe, Carson City, all through there, ended up buying the Greeley Tribune as one of 26 newspapers he owned in the West, and then moved here in the 90s to do like the last 10 years before he retired. And he had that book by Lynn Westcott, 101 Truck Plans. I'm sure everybody's seen that book, right? There's an article in there that says, if I had $1 million, the little story about if I had $1 million, I could build the ultimate model railroad. Well, he took that as a challenge his whole life. And he bought and sold Lionel. It's kind of a long story, but he saved the money and he used the $1 million that he raised to build the museum. Actually, I had to add a little more, but because of inflation. But the $1 million, the challenge, he met the challenge. And he wanted to build the ultimate scenic model railroad. But he kept some other things in mind. And his dream for it was that clubs would come and visit and operate on it. He never really thought it would be this, like, that the general public would care, that they would enjoy a model railroad. And so he didn't really make a sustainability plan for it at all. And so that's when I came into the picture, and I'd worked in nonprofits and everything. We just had a lot of conversations. And so that's how we became the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. Greeley Freight Station was the original name. And the phone book they would put us under freight forwarding with like FedEx and UPS. They never could figure out we were actually a museum. And it was, and nobody knew where Greeley was. So we thought a little bigger and called ourselves the Colorado Model Railroad Museum.
Wow. So a lot of work, a lot of efforts, beginning with one man vision, and then a lot of people just came on board.
He spent 5 years building it. He had the bench work done by a professional. He said, I want that to be solid. So we hired that, and then he started building the layout, all the mountains and all the things. And it took 5 years and about 35,000 man hours. He had a small team of about 10 to 15 people who would help. And so, yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, it's just amazing to see that. And I mean, I have had the opportunity and been fortunate enough last year, I got to see it for the first time. And it was a lot to take in. I mean, tell us, first, how big of the facility is the layout in?
So it's a 10,000 square foot building with a 5,500 square foot layout in it, and a full size caboose that looks small.
Well, and I was reading too that the museum sees on average, it's already seen something, what, 150,000 people have gone through the
Actually,
doors?
that must be, I need probably need to update our website. We're almost about to hit 225,000 visitors.
No
So,
kidding.
yeah.
Wow.
And we're the place where the public meets the hobby. It's really interesting. You'd think we'd have all of our visitors would be modelers. They're probably 25% or less of our visitors are actual modelers. It might be even lower.
Hmm,
Our visitors are families. They're grandparents with grandkids, people on trips. It's where the public meets the hobby.
that's interesting. So you, with you being open to the public like that, you really do get to see a much wider, I guess, diversity of people to come in.
We do.
Um, are you seeing a lot more younger people coming in, families? What do you see as far as most people coming in to visit?
So our visitors, I always thought, well, so I have to be honest. When I first started working there, I was like, I better brush up on that senior market, right? Our visitors turned out to be a third seniors, a third adults, and a third kids. And honestly, it tends to be that we get those multi-generational family visitors. But I will tell you this, we have a lot of volunteers under the age of 20. A lot of guys that
Wow.
love trains that find us. We had 6 new volunteers under the age of 30 in the last year and a half. And so, and a lot of these younger guys that are coming in don't know how to meet other people in the hobby. They love model trains and they've kind of grown up with it, but they're not sure what a club is because it's just not something you do in today's younger generations. And so they find us and then we kind of introduce them to the rest of the hobby. And so it's been an interesting thing that I didn't expect. I just thought if you model, you know everything. You know there's clubs, you know there's stores, you know there's groups, and all they know is the social media aspect of it.
Mm,
But that doesn't help you
mhm.
connect locally, so
Wow.
it's been interesting.
So have you gained some of the younger members
Oh
just by
yeah.
them visiting? Okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
we also have a member. So we have 2 different things. We're not a club with club membership. We call them
Yeah.
volunteers. And they come from all the clubs in our area and from Iowa and from New Mexico. We have volunteers from all over the place. And we can talk about that. You can be a volunteer. You just have to give us a weekend for training, and then you can come when you can. But we have a membership program, just like the zoos and the big museums of nature and science do. And we have that kind of membership for families. And we have a lot of members. I think we have over 200 families that are members. So,
Wow. That's amazing. So over the years, obviously, I mean, you've been involved in the hobby and you've been involved with the museum for a number of years. In all those years, what do you think is the most interesting aspect of this hobby?
the people, I will absolutely jump on that answer every time and say the people. But that's because I love people. I even love the grumpy old men. I just get a kick out of them. I think I drive them crazy, but I love them. So,
If I can use you for 15 minutes at the booth when I have one of those guys asking for a blue box, I'll hire you.
I've hit my wall of them. Trust me. I was told I would destroy this hobby, single-handedly destroy this hobby. In my
Okay,
first
that
year at the
sounds like something
museum.
you need to get into. But tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so my first year as an employee at the museum, I actually was like, I own these Star Wars toys that are 1:87 scale micro machines. Star Wars. You remember the little head that would
Oh
open up and
yeah,
had a little platform and all the Star Wars people? I had all
sure.
those because I'm nerdy. And so I called my Star Wars costuming friends and I said, "Hey, could you guys come and do like a literacy day or something at the museum and come in?" And I put all my little toys in the layout. And some of the guys that were volunteers there were very, very unhappy with me. And they said, "This isn't prototypical." One of them even went home. He was so mad at me. and, and we had 500 visitors that morning, which is huge for us at the time, right? That was amazing. It was our highest attendance day ever. And
Wow.
and so I had the Northern Colorado Model Railroad Club come in the next weekend. They rotate and meet with us quarterly in our building. And I was telling them about it. And one of their attendees was like, "You will single-handedly destroy this hobby with stupid stuff like this." And I said, "Well, sir, I appreciate your opinion, but there were people that came in this building who have never seen model trains, and that's what my job is."
Right.
So,
And it worked because you ended up having your most successful weekend.
yeah. Yeah,
That's
and
great.
now we hide dinosaurs. We do crazy things with model trains, but it's okay because the people that come for that will find the hobby, right? So you
Sure.
have to loosen up a little bit on, and believe me, I have learned that in my own modeling, I'm a super rivet counter. Like my trains have to be right on, so I get it, but to find balance.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean, I think a lot of us are guilty of that. Um, trying to be the super scale, and sometimes the public just wants to see trains run in circles. They just want to see something, and so what you're doing there with the museum is a great way to bring people in. And it sounds like you kind of have themed events as well.
We do. We have a lot of themed events and they're fun and they keep it lively and different and a reason to come and visit more than once in a year. And so we do a lot of things like that. It's fun. We
That's
put fun in
great.
the hobby. We have fun every day. We have a rule at the museum. And this comes from the founder, Dave Trussell. On my very first day of employment, he said, Michelle, he crossed his arms, I have one rule, and this will be our culture. And so I get out a piece of paper. I'm like, okay. And he goes, if it's not fun, change it. And there it is. It's super simple.
Wow,
And when you apply it to things, it really does work.
that's great. Now, speaking of people and working with people, you've been active with the Women of Model Railroading group for a number of years. For those of us that aren't familiar with that, kind of give us a background and what you guys do.
Yeah. So Nancy Workman from Soundtracks has long been in this hobby and been a promoter of women in the hobby. And there was a special interest group years ago, but it kind of fell away. And so she came to me and she said, I think we need to reactivate this. We need to meet the other ladies in the hobby. And I said, okay. And so Nancy's been the driving force behind this, but we're the museum that took it on as a program. And so it is a program of our museum, but we use it, but then it's a special interest group of the NMRA and they amplify it out. And so we started it 2 years ago. And one of the things that we found is that women are kind of shy at train shows and don't meet each other. And so we've started doing kind of a gathering event at train shows. We call it like a social and I use cookies because I can get them, afford them when I travel. So it ended up being cookies. I would have done beef jerky, can't afford it. So cookies it is. But we find that when we do these little social events and invite the ladies, they actually meet each other. And then friendships are formed in the hobby, which is really neat. And we really amplify the work of women. So our Facebook group is about women that model and what they're modeling, which is kind of fun. We all share stuff in there. And then we also have a rail fan piece of our Facebook group. We have the Steam Sisters, which I started years ago and just morphed it into there because I'm a huge rail fan on the side. And so we kind of took all of the aspects of the hobby and said, what do women do in here? Let's look at that. So
That's neat. Yeah, you bring up a good point. I always see, and you and I were talking about this before the show. Sometimes when we go to these shows, it's kind of like a, dare say, family reunion because you and I
yeah.
both know George from Soundtracks, and we may know someone from another manufacturer. And we're just all happy to see each other again. And then there's the wives, and in the past, the wives are just kind of like, yeah, hey, it's
Right.
all of us, we're having fun, and then the wives, and it's really great how you and Nancy have been,
Yeah.
putting
We
that
did
together.
something we did something new at the Amherst show this last year. We did an operating session on Saturday
Oh,
night on the Dry Hill Club layout.
okay.
And Marie that helps run that layout is just such a huge supporter. And so during our social hour and our advertising, and the train show helped us do this, we put out, if you've never operated before and you want to try it, come do this. And we had almost 20 ladies and people that came. And it's not just ladies. I say ladies, but honestly, it's people because we have guys in there too that support women in model railroading. We are not exclusive. So, and a lot of them operated for the first time or tried a different kind of job, like switching for the first time. I know that was Jennifer's first time. And it was so fun. And they felt safe in this environment. Because I will tell you this, as a girl, especially one who has a title of a director of a model train museum, and I didn't know a lot about modeling, and I went to a home layout, and they're like, here, take a throttle. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to destroy this layout. I am so scared. Everybody's going to think and so all this pressure came on me like, I'm going to fail. And so I think providing a safe space to try it out is important.
Now, trust me, that is something that is not just for one individual. That I think all of us have been there, been called to a layout to do an operating session, and yeah, it's funny the thoughts that go in our heads of locomotives catching on fire and stuff. We do the wrong thing, but that's
Yeah.
neat. I did see some posts on the NMRA Facebook page that you guys were running on the Dry Hill layout, and that's a great thing. Now, that was something that you coordinated, or just as a group you coordinated that?
Actually, John Sacerdoti and Greg Moss from the show helped put that together. The people who run the Railroad Hobby Show, which we often call the Amherst Show, they're amazing, and they're all about the hobby and supporting it. Just like the Rocky Mountain Train Show, I tell you, John Garberg, who runs that, is about the hobby, and the TCA group in Denver, who puts on an all scales train show, they are about the hobby, and they're wonderful people. So I can't say enough about both of those train shows. They're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight is because I'm looking forward to the Rocky Mountain Train Show. I'm hopefully a lot of our viewers are as equally as excited. But besides the train show, and trust me, the train show is amazing. They get some really good layouts in there.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me sometimes to concentrate on the booth because I get to see all these great models and layouts. But there's other stuff outside. And how far are you from the train show? How far is Greenlee?
Greeley's about an hour drive to the north. So we're halfway from Denver to Cheyenne, Wyoming. And most people don't know their geography. And Cheyenne sits on the state line of Colorado, like way southern Wyoming. And so we're halfway in between, about an hour north. You do have to have a car. There's no train system here like the East Coast. And we get international visitors sometimes. I had an Australian walk in the door, and then he said something about walking to his hotel, and I said, "How did you get to Greeley?" And he said, "It was a $90 Uber." I went, "Holy cow!" So you need to be prepared when you come to Colorado. We don't have that.
That's it.
No population density to support that yet. So
you can be like George and I. We try to pool our resources. If you've got a larger vehicle or a van or something, and you get some guys that are wanting to go, I mean, it's definitely worth the trip.
So gather your friends and come together and share the car rental. Yeah. And then you can do things. Exactly. So there's our museum in Greeley. There's the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden, which is about a 20-minute drive from the train show. There's Rocky Mountain Train Supply, which is our hobby shop in Denver, like the biggest one there. And then there's the Forney Museum of Transportation that has one of the 8 big boys in the country. And so there's a lot to do just right around the train show. So it's fun. And you can always go rail fanning. You could go up to the Moffett Tunnel, the East Portal. That's about an hour and a half away. Or Cheyenne, catch a big boy in a park. I mean, there's things to do.
Denver really is a railroad town too. I mean, a lot of railroads came into Denver, and they still do. They're kind of under one banner now, but
well, we have BNSF and Union Pacific, and they have this one joint yard that you can rail fan safely. And if you do, come message me and I'll tell you how to safely rail fan the North Yard. And they kick cars there. It's actually really interesting. You can be on a bridge and the locomotives are underneath you, and that's a public space. So
that is very cool. So we've got a few questions that come in. I'll take a few here and there. One of our guests was asking, what do you have in store for Rocky Mountain Train Show this year? So they must know you have something either you're planning or you're working on. I don't know what you're up to.
Well, okay. So what the museum does at the show, let me start with what the museum does. We have 2 separate areas. We have one area where we sell the used product that's donated to us that we don't keep in collection. And we have a couple things in this booth. Most of our stuff is priced so kids can buy it. And no child will ever walk away without something, even if it's free in our booth. Our stuff is but you're also fundraising. And so sometimes we'll be like, well, here's our price, but if you'd like to donate, that's great. And people do, they're wonderful. And then we have one of our board members who takes the Lionel trains that are donated, and he makes these boxes that have an entire kit. So you get a transformer, all the track you need in an entire train, and we sell them for $40 for families. And so, and if they can't afford that, that's fine. They're still going to get one, right? So, but that's what we do in that booth. And then we have in the youth area, in the other room, we have a Lego train where kids build stuff on a Lego deck. And LGB sponsored this train for us with the Lego deck cars. It's really neat. So we have this G-scale train, and the kids build on that. And that's where our information booth is, and all of our pretty pictures and how you can visit the museum and that stuff. So that's what we do there. We have 2 booths. But this year I put together what's called a meet and greet booth. This is brand new to the show this year. We learned this lesson last year when we had TSG Multimedia come to the show. People wanted to meet them, but they were out creating content. And so people didn't know how to find the people that are, content creators. And so we created this booth where they could have an assigned hour each day so you can find them. Yeah. And this year, I know Second Section podcast is coming. And so they'll have an hour each day. And then we also have some authors who don't necessarily need an entire booth, but will come and do a book signing for an hour. And then we're going to talk about the Colorado RPM, and Women in Model Railroading gets an hour if you have questions about that or want to meet us. And so we're trying it, and bless the train show for giving me the opportunity to give this a whirl. So I hope it works out.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite shows just because that show is so accommodating. And again, the level of modeling that they have for layouts that are in the building is just amazing. Yeah. Now I have to ask a couple of questions. Some folks in the comments are asking. Charles Woods wants to know if there's any N scale tonight. Well, we're not typically just talking about one particular scale or even just a particular Athearn locomotive. That's more of a Train Tuesday thing. Athearn Extra, we're going to be concentrating on the shows and the places where you can participate and see Athearn. Now, of course, Athearn will be.
I have an in-scale topic. My Fremo Inn module will be displayed for the very first time at the Rocky Mountain Train Show on the Fremo Inn layout. So that's an in topic.
Tell us a little about your Fremo Inn module. I heard you talk about it briefly.
So I have actually two pieces of my module set. And it's Greeley. It's the Greeley sub. So the museum's on it, and I'll slowly build all the buildings down the tracks from us. And so that way I can go to train shows and take part in it. And I'm an N-scaler at home. And so because I have HO at work, I want to do something different, and I love N-scale. So I have a little tiny layout, and then now I have these Fremo N modules I'm working on.
That's cool. So you just started the Fremo N this year then?
Yeah, and this is how I'm learning to model, is on this Fremo Inn, because this is the first one I've actually kind of built myself and laying track. And I was trying to put sand down and glue that down, and this has been a learning process for me.
One thing about model railroading, it's always a learning process.
Yeah. And that's painting my little mural for my warehouse. So
yeah, you were showing me that earlier. Do you mind showing the fans that you were working on?
It. So the museum has a warehouse, and we had a New York street artist and some college students did a project, and they painted a mural. And the mural, I'll just kind of show some pictures. Like, this is an actual photograph of part of the mural. Let's see how this goes. And then, so it's a long picture, and I actually printed it out in N-scale. This is the printout. But what I really wanted to do was see if I could paint it. And I did. So I'm almost done. I'm still working on the little train at this end. He needs some detail. And then it'll be done. And so hopefully it looks like, So wow. I've been freehanding this because I love to paint. And that's my fun. Here, I'll hold it a little closer so people. I don't know if it'll focus. Anyway, so if you come to my module, you'll see this little warehouse once I get the building put together.
So there you go. There's some N-scale for you, Charles.
N-scale topic for him.
Yeah. Now, what do you think is your preferred or favorite, or what you're modeling railroad? What railroad is your favorite, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I find that I'm really split at heart. I love Rio Grande Steam because I love the tourist trains of Colorado. The Cumberland and Toltec is just right here in my heart. And I love the Rio Grande Steam. But when I went to model something, I actually love modern diesels. And then that would be Union Pacific, because that's what I see every day.
Sure.
And so I guess I'm a Union Pacific and Rio Grande girl.
Okay.
That's what I know, neat. Right? Sure. I'd never seen CSX until last year in my life. right?
Oh,
So
wow. That is, yeah, I mean, that's the same with a lot of us. I mean, myself included, is we model either what we remember or what we see. And
right.
yeah, and now, that brings up another interesting topic is when we're dealing with the younger modelers, say in their 20s and 30s. It's hard for me, anyways, to fathom that they've never seen a caboose other than maybe as a shoving platform. And so, do you see a lot of the younger guys coming in? Are they modeling the more modern stuff, or do they kind of get interested in the older steam and transition?
It's kind of a 50-50 split on that. We have some
Hmm.
that love steam and are just dedicated to steam. And then, but I would say it's probably a third. Actually, more of the younger people love the modern stuff because that's what they see. Um, yeah, we have one young man who brings British trains in, and he said, "I
Really?
just like that they're different." I said, "Well, I'm learning. That's the craziest whistle I've ever heard." But yeah, I
That's
think
neat.
modern, they really do. I think our younger modelers really like the modern trains, maybe SD70s and newer, because that's what they see.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that would make sense. So going back to the layout at the museum, you talked a little bit about how the bench work was put up professionally, but as far as once it came time to lay track all the way to where it's at now, how long did that take?
That took 5 years. And
Really?
and Dave has often said that the only reason that it's 100% complete is that he wouldn't let them actually operate on it other than testing until it was done. Because so many people start their layout and then they operate on it and then they never finish
Uh-huh.
the scenery. And so he was determined it would be done. And it took him 5 years and about 35,000 volunteer hours among Dave and the people who helped him. So
And you know off the top of your head how many volunteers that was?
it was about 15 to 20 people. It was a really small group.
Really?
He had a modular layout prior to building the museum called the Denver Greeley in Tahoe.
Okay.
And he took it to the National Train Show, I think in 1997 or so, somewhere in that range in the late 90s. And he won. He won the award and then he couldn't compete anymore. So that's when he's like, well, maybe I'll just build my dream. And so that's how the museum got started. He had the land. It used to belong to the newspaper that he owned. And so he sectioned it off. And now we had to buy it back from the newspaper, our warehouse. And I don't think Dave ever dreamed that it would be what it is today. But he
Yeah,
did build
definitely.
the ultimate layout. He wanted to build the ultimate scenic layout. And
Sure.
so we have a big mountain and all of the rock work, he made his own molds off of coal. There's a coal, Kaiser coals across the tracks from us. And
Mhm.
he would give him big pieces of coal and he would make his molds on there. And then that's how he made the rocks. So we made all the trees, 28,000 handmade trees,
Oh my gosh.
of
Wow.
which I made one because they were done when I got there. I made one replacement tree.
Oh my gosh. Now, when I was there, obviously the layout was running.
Yeah.
How many, on an average night, I guess you could say, when it's open to the public, how many operators do you have on that layout?
Typically, so we operate Fridays and Saturdays and some Sundays, and we typically have 15 to 20 people.
Okay.
But we have a computer program that will run it with just a few people. So just one even could run it. But when we operate, we like to have a minimum of like 5 or 6 trains on the layout at any time, but we can put 18 trains on the layout and they're 100-car trains. So
Wow.
it can hold it. It's just we like to have them moving because if you don't have at least 6, you can't even find a train, even though they're
Right.
100 cars long. So
Right. Wow. Now, when you mentioned earlier that and not quite a club, but you do operate on the layout, right? You have times when it's just for you guys to operate, or
mm, we do every now and then. We'll do like the guys. They come in early on Sundays. We open to the public at noon, and the guys will come in at 9 and start playing. And then but our operating sessions are for the public and the public is right in there in the middle listening to us talk on the radios to our dispatcher. It's fully dispatched. And so
wow.
it's truly being in an operating session. And I think that's why our visitors love it so much because it's so interactive. You are in the middle of the site and sound is half of your model railroading experience. The invention of sound in this hobby was huge, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Most
so it's
definitely.
alive around you and you're walking in this miniature world. And yeah, so we are, the reason I say we're not a club is we are a 501c3 nonprofit, meaning we operate under a mission statement. And so our mission, the reason that all of us, including me down to volunteers, everybody, we walk in that door because we want to provide a model railroading experience that educates, inspires, and brings joy to all ages. And so that's what we do every day. We educate, we inspire, and we bring joy to people. And so that's why we're there. And so you're a volunteer when you're there. You can be a member and support us by purchasing a membership, but you can also just come in and run trains with us. So.
And how much is the membership?
Oh, they range. We have the ones that are just real basic, like they pay off on your third visit. So I think our lowest one is a single for $30, I think. Our most popular one is our $100 membership because we created, and I should have brought it home with me, we created a challenge coin this year. I think we're the first model railroad museum to have a challenge coin, but you get the silver one at the $100 membership level and we'll mail it to you. And we did this so that we could have members around the world and they could be part of what we're doing. Because some people may never visit, but they love us and our programs and they've just gotten to know us online through social media and stuff. And so we created these coins. You can purchase the white one in our gift shop, but the silver one you only get through membership of $100 or higher. And so it's a donation, but it's been our most popular for sure. And that gives you, what it gives you is a family membership or a grandparent membership. So you can bring you and another adult and all your children for that. That's for a year. That's how that works.
Wow. That's neat. Now, some of the features we were talking about, I remembered some of the features that I saw last year. I think he whispered in my ear, like, "Hey, Jim, check this out." And it was a forest fire. Now, honestly, in real life, that would be horrifying, but on a model railroad, this was quite a engineering feat. You had the smoke, the lights. Mm-hmm. This is just one of the scenes that your group has recreated.
Yeah. Our volunteers have been amazingly talented. So that is a series of Arduino lights that flicker with sound effects that make the fire sound. And then the smoke was interesting. Down underneath, we have a PVC pipe end, right? Of course, because we all use PVC underneath, right? And you put the smoke fluid in there and the little tab comes down and liquefies it or vaporizes it. But what happened was the first time they did it, all the vapor just went under the layout, right? Because it's heavier than air. So now there's a whole series of aquarium fans that pull all that up and make it flow out over the hillside. And it's a beautiful feature. It's just amazing to video because there's a train up on the trestle and it's burning under it, and it's fun.
That is neat. And talk a little bit about the structures too. Are the structures mainly built from members? Are they scratch built?
Most of them were scratch built by Dave Trussell over his lifetime.
Wow.
He populated a lot of the layout with things he's built, especially when they were specific to where he was in Oregon. So our layout is the Oregon, California, and Eastern Railway. Okay. And so a lot of people think, oh, this is Colorado, because he totally cheated. I thought he was 100% prototypical until I actually went to Oregon and saw the Scenic. And I said, there's no high bridges out here. And Dave said, well, I liked bridges. So our layout is proto-freelance. And we have beautiful trestle bridges that Dave constructed completely from scratch. And most of his structures were the same. We have a Shiwakan hotel that he completely scratch built. And our snow shed, if you go up in our mezzanine and look down, you'll see a snow shed inside the mountain. That was there before the mountain, and he built it by every one little piece at a time. So. Wow.
Now, as if there wasn't, if that wasn't enough, you also have some railroad artifacts and history within the building. Tell us a little bit about that.
We do. Our biggest artifact is our Colorado and Southern caboose, 10583. It was built in 1919 with 6 cabooses for the Colorado and Southern, and they were the beer cabooses. They ran beer from Coors into Denver, which was a day trip. Wow. And so, I mean, you can drive out there in an hour today, but back in the day, that was a whole day on a train. So these cabooses ran there, and then 10583 went north on the Colorado and Southern. And when you visit the museum, there's tracks on the east and tracks on the west, and we sat between 2 railroads. And so the Union Pacific line from Denver to Cheyenne is on the east side of our building, and the old Colorado and Southern line is on the west side. And so our caboose ran on that track. And it would go from Greeley to Fort Collins and all over northern Colorado on the Colorado and Southern. And then it was retired, and they sold it, and a family bought it that's in Loveland, the next town to the west of us. And Dave Trussell bought it back from this family. But it's really interesting that the boy who grew up in that family now works for the Durango in Silverton. So he comes to visit his caboose sometimes.
Oh, that's neat.
It's really neat. We have some neat stories. So
tell us a little bit.
So
tell us a little bit about Dave Trussell, kind of his background, and then maybe how you met him.
Okay, so Dave was always a modeler, and he had many small layouts over his lifetime as he moved around with his newspapers. And then he started building a modular railroad, and he had lots of modules. And he ended up with the Denver, Greeley, and Tahoe being a 60-foot by 60-foot square of modules. So it was large. And then when he won, right, and decided to build the museum, he actually built a new building for the Greeley Tribune newspaper that he owned, and he used the old building as his modeling building. And that's where he kind of built all the things.
Wow.
And then constructed the new building for where we're at now. Our museum is a brand new constructed building. And those duck unders where the stairs go down were all designed into his layout design and built for this purpose. So, so Dave he's an artist. He's not into heavy operations as much as he is the scenery. He loves building the layout. He's that person on the building side. But he also understood that for people to enjoy this layout, he needed to make it accessible for modelers. Our plexiglass is like this high so that we can operate. And I think that's really unique about us is that we're doing operations right in the middle of where our visitors are standing. So you're watching the guy do the switching and unhook the cars. And so our guests are right there watching that. So I think Dave he put it all together in a really good way on our layout. So did I answer all the question? I can't remember if there was more to that question.
I mean, it's kind of neat to hear, the origins of some of these things.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing to me, and I'm sure to our viewers that, this one man had a vision. He went from a modular type layout and he's like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And the great thing about it is it really drew in the community. Now you have visitors, I would imagine, from all over the world, don't you?
Oh yes, all over the world. And almost every summer, if you come in the building, you'll find 2 or 3 states and a foreign country. Like our visitors come from everywhere. We usually hit all 50 states every year and 18 to 20 different countries or more. It's been interesting. It's fun.
Wow, that is neat. And I really, and we have the link to your website in the video description below. So take some time and see that. And I really love the front page of the website. You just see the awe in those 2 children's eyes as they're looking at the layout, and that's exactly what we want to see. Those could be future modelers.
That's what we see every day. We get to experience that every day. And if I ever get tired, depressed, grumpy, whatever in my office, I just get up and go walk out to our guests, and I will always find myself smiling. Right? Just go talk to somebody and learn why they're there. So one thing about the public is that most people have trains in their lives somewhere. Somewhere that grandpa had a train set, or grandpa worked for a railroad, or I grew up, my dad modeled, or I lived in a town where trains went by. It's interesting how everybody has a train in their life somewhere. And we just connect.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's true too. I mean, all of us, ironically enough, I came from an aviation family, but we still had trains in there somehow.
But you still had trains in your life, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just amazing how that works out. Now, I've got to ask, being the executive director of, I think it's safe to say, a world-renowned museum now, what is a day-to-day operation like for Michelle?
Well, I can tell you that there are no 2 days alike. It's always something different every day. I'm wearing this t-shirt today because today I was in Fort Collins doing Operation Lifesaver Rail Safety to all the bus drivers who drive their public transportation buses, right? Okay. So that's one of the hats I wear, is rail safety. I wear a hat in tourism. I sit on Colorado State Tourism Board, Okay, so I go to tourism shows to promote riding the trains of Colorado and come visiting our museum with motor coaches and buses. I go to the hobby shows. I get to meet the hobby. So I have a hobby, that aspect of my job. And then I have the community of Greeley aspect of my job. I sit on committees for all the different events in Greeley, like Monster Day. If you ever visit the museum, look in my office. I have an entire shelf of monsters. And that's because I'm on the planning committee for Monster Day. So, but all these things connect the museum to the world, right? So the things that I do in some way will connect us to people. So yeah, it's interesting. And then of course I'll run down and run a train on the layout or something, right? Or go talk to the guests. And I do pay the bills, like the boring part of the job. I have to create the budget, meet the budget, pay the bills, right? So there's that part of it. There's the whole actual managing the enterprise piece of it too. But I have amazing staff. I have great people that work at the museum, and they make it fun. We have fun every day.
Yeah, looking at your website, you've got, not only do you have a wide range of folks on staff, but relatively young too.
Yeah, and we just hired our youth director right out of college.
Wow.
And she was already working for us. Okay, so when a girl walks into your train museum and hands you a resume and says, I want to work here. Okay, would you hire? I want to work here because I love this place. And at first I had this resume on my desk and I was like, I didn't know we were hiring, and then I happened to be downstairs 2 weeks later when she came back in and said, I just wanted to make sure you got my resume. And I said, okay, tell me about yourself. And I hired her on the spot. I said, you want to be here? So we want you here. So she did every other Sunday and now through college. And now she's our youth director and she's fabulous. If you haven't met Madison, she's wonderful.
So tell us a little bit about Madison's role. You said that she's working with the youth. Is she actively working on programs to bring youth into the hobby?
So we do summer camps. We tried it for the first time last year. So we hired her a little over a year ago. And I told her, I said, I just want you to do summer camps and focus on that. And let's do that last year. And they were such a success. She ran 8 summer camps from preschool up through junior high age. And we don't have space. We're very space constrained for these things. So we have to do them from 8 to 10 in the morning. And so we're working on building classrooms so Madison can do education all the time for kids. And then we'll start doing adult education too. We need to be teaching the hobby, right? So we're missing this whole piece. We're showing them the hobby, but we're not teaching them how to do it. So we're working on expansion so that we can build a place where we can build things. So you can come in and make a tree. Or
exactly.
Back, right? We want people to actually get their hands in the hobby. And so Madison goes out to places, to schools, and works with kids. And she takes our Lego train all over the place to different events and things. And that's just going to keep growing.
That's great. That's great. Michelle, are you up for taking a few questions from our online participants?
Yeah, sure.
If you've got a question for Michelle, here's your chance. I will look in the comment section here and put that question up on the screen for her. Again, if you're going to the Rocky Mountain Train Show, and that's coming up April 6th and 7th, if I remember correctly, you owe it to yourself to go here. The museum is just amazing. And, Michelle and I were talking earlier, too. I mean, Athearn is going to donate a locomotive to the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. We want to support a museum like this because of everything they do for the community and especially getting more young folks into the hobby. But also we were thinking, maybe the museum could raffle off an Athearn Genesis locomotive, and we'll have that available during that weekend. Now we don't have all the details hashed out yet. This is kind of a brainstorm we came up with. But be watching our social media. And by the way, of course, you guys are on social media, so if they're not signed up, they need to.
Yeah, go follow us.
Definitely.
Follow the museum. And if you're coming to the Rocky Mountain Train Show, you can visit the museum on Friday. And we're also going to have hours on Monday. We're usually closed on Mondays, but we know with this train show, people are traveling. So you can come see us on Monday too.
There you go. Really good. Let's see. I am not seeing any questions yet. Remember, guys, we're not really talking about new product suggestions or anything like that. But if you've got a question about Michelle, her involvement in the hobby and representing the hobby, or specifically the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, now's your time to ask. And really, the only question I have for our viewers is, if you haven't been there, why haven't you? Because I don't know. I was there for a while last year, and I still don't know if I saw it all. There's
You
quite a
probably
bit.
didn't. Every now and
Oh,
then, I still find a little scene and I go, I didn't know that was there. Like something that Dave did, this like a little detail somewhere. We have small details all over the layout. So it takes multiple visits to see it, I think.
you said that you've got Andy and Michael from Second Section showing up. Hopefully, they'll get to see the museum.
Yeah, I
Watch
think they're
out
coming
for
Friday. I'm
watch out
sorry.
for Michael. He'll try to get you to S scale.
S-Scale's, that's expensive. No, I'm just kidding.
Too heavy
As
for
a
me.
museum
I'll stick with
director, I
S
have
scale.
someday we'll have something S-Scale. We'll have all the scales eventually. So
There you go. I'm getting a lot of good comments. I'm going to put one of these comments up for you to see. Thank you, Michelle, for all the energy you contribute to the hobby. I think a lot of us feel that way. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see this energy, and especially to see what the museum is doing within the community and even outside the community to promote the hobby.
That's our point, right? I want to have a place where my grandkids can go and they can take their grandkids and they can all enjoy this hobby. So my job is to make something that's sustainable for lots of future generations. So about the hobby. And it's interesting. We are the museum that is about the hobby. There's a lot of model train museums, but they're usually historic about the layout and what's local to them. They're usually a historic layout telling the story of their local railroads. We got an Oregon layout in Colorado. We're about the hobby. So, I saw a question about being open Thursday. We are open Thursday.
Yeah, we've got a question. If it looks like he's going to be going to the show, so that's good.
Yeah. And we are open Thursdays all year. We're open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday all year. And then like this week was spring break, so we're open at the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And then the summer we're open the Tuesdays and Wednesdays also. So
let's see a comment from. Let's see. 39 DJ Scotty. Hi, Jim and Michelle. I've been to the museum quite a few times, and the one thing that amazes me is all the different elevations and not one single helix in the museum. Good reminder. I forgot about that.
Well, we have it. It's kind of a gigantic reverse helix that's like huge. You don't even notice it's a helix. We call it the loops, the section at the far end. And it's all underneath. And it's not like just in a circle like this anywhere, but it's big loops that sort of helix. But there's places where you can see 5 to 6 levels of track on the mountainside. It's pretty amazing. The depth of scenes you can see where the Shiwakan River. There's a place where you stand at the end of our yellow step and you look down this river and it's long and beautiful. Dave was brilliant at design.
Definitely you can see the artist background.
Yeah.
Larry wants to know, is the museum connected to the NMRA in any way?
Well, we're a member and we're supporters, and we have the Women in Model Railroading Special Interest Group as one of our programs. And we love the NMRA. I mean, we work closely with them all the time. So very much a supporter. And the Northern Colorado division of the NMRA meets at the museum on the 3rd Saturday nights of every month if you want to come and model with us.
Oh, there you go.
So
Calculated Snipe wants to know, what's something new you'd like to bring to the museum?
Well, I'd really love to get our garden railroad built. We have to take down a power pole, and that's been a real issue, but we're planning a garden railroad, and I'm excited to bring all the scales to the museum in multiple layouts and a classroom. I really want a classroom, but we have to build something. So we're working on the design with architects right now. So someday you'll see us enter a capital campaign to raise the dollars to build the classrooms. So I'm excited about it.
Willie wants to know, do you have a YouTube channel maybe for the museum?
We do. The museum has a YouTube channel. Jennifer's been really good about populating it. Facebook is probably our most active place, Facebook and Instagram. We have a TikTok that's just trains and crazy stuff. But yeah, we do have a YouTube channel. Excuse me, we have a YouTube channel. So.
Let's see. Bernard says, Michelle, I missed the meet and greet last year, was so bummed, but full head of steam this year. Sounds like he's coming to join us. So yes, we look forward to it. Don't miss out.
Yeah, don't miss out, and go to look at for our RPM too, where the museum is created at the Colorado RPM at corpm.org, and that's new, and we're kicking it off this year and doing a big one next year. So look for that. And so we have a
Well,
lot going on.
yeah, a lot going on. Bernard C's got a question. I think we'll probably end the program with this. He says, Michelle, are the kids still doing the pizza box stem layouts? That sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
so we actually did a lot of that before COVID, and we actually taught every day in a public school for an hour. We worked with kids.
Wow.
Yeah, and we built those big Woodland Scenics 2x4 layouts with kids, and we did them at Boys and Girls Clubs after school, and we put them together. And then COVID hit, and the schools didn't want us in there, right? So
Uh,
this is the first year that we've been back in a classroom making the little Woodland Scenic scenery wedges with kids, and having Madison on board now. We will get back into this, and we have about 40 T-track modules sitting in our warehouse waiting for kids to build them. And
oh,
so the
wow.
pizza box layout is a round, small layout, minimum curvature, and kids build whatever. They do a lot of that in Salt Lake City, and I'm sure we will be getting into that shortly. So coming back,
Well,
it's awesome.
yeah, it does feel like it's coming back. It's a
Yeah.
couple of years we kind of were laying low. I don't know about you, but I do like getting out to the shows and meeting everyone. That's always nice. Um, so
Yeah.
looking forward to it. Michelle, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and
Thank you,
joining us
Jim.
tonight. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
talking about the
having me.
museum.
This was fun. And thanks to all the viewers who are watching. Thanks for your interest in the museum and the support you give us. And thank you, Athearn, for the support that Athearn gives us too.
Oh,
There's a
you're
lot of
certainly
Athearn on
welcome.
our layout. There's a whole lot of Athearn on our layout. So
Yes, yes, of course that makes us happy. We like I said, we're going to support you with another locomotive this year, and then for all of our viewers, if you want to know more about the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, take a look in the description below. We've got a link to their website. Also, check out the Rocky Mountain Train Show website. That link is also in the description. You know what? You owe it to yourself to spend a few days. Don't just go to the train show, but spend a few days because Denver sounds like a really good rail fan model railroad town.
it is. There's a lot to do and some great museums to visit. So yeah, come see us.
Michelle, once again, it was a pleasure having you on board tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
All right. I will see you at the Rocky Mountain Train Show.
See ya.
All right. Take care. All right, that is all I've got for you tonight. I want to thank once again Michelle for coming on board. Again, if you've not been to the Rocky Mountain Train Show, you owe it to yourself to check that out. Again, the website is in the link below, and also the link for the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. Make a long weekend out of it. It's definitely worth it. Myself, I'm going to be at the Rocky Mountain Train Show at the Athearn booth, and this time I'm bringing a bunch of product with me, so be sure to stop by, and don't forget, first 100 folks that stop by the Athearn booth will get a special Rocky Mountain Train Show sticker. I'm only making 100 of them. So if you are a Denver Rio Grande fan, you're going to want to stop by the booth and pick that sticker up. Until next time, everyone out there, be happy, do some good modeling, be kind of others, and above all, high greens. Take care, everyone.